So one of the questions I think I had when I first read Descartes is that I think I understood the problem and the goal. The problem was that he had no real way of knowing whether he knew anything, and the goal was to find out if there was anything that he really knew. Um, I I think I understood that, and I think I still believe that those are the fundamental issues of the meditations. So, given that, why is there so much talk of God? That's what confused me. This is not a work of theology. Um, Proving the existence of God is not, I think, the primary goal of this work, but there's a heck of a lot of discussion of God and an attempt to prove the existence of God, and then bringing in God when it comes back to those basic questions of whether He knows anything, and if so, what. But if we think about the criterion of truth that Descartes arrives at, that is, after he has found, without God's help in any sort of material way, after he has found the basic rock or foundation of his knowledge, that he knows that he exists, he knows that he is thinking, and that he is therefore a thinking thing, that thinking about what that does for him in terms of providing him with a criterion for deciding whether he knows other things, that all he can say is that the truth of that perception that he exists, that he is thinking, occurs to him most vividly and clearly. Clearly and distinctly is the traditional translation, but I believe our author has vividly and clearly. And um, you know, problem with that, of course, is that it doesn't seem to be an infallible rule for distinguishing between those things which we know and those things which we merely suppose or believe. It may be in practice how we do it. That if something seems very strongly to be so, that I accept it to be so, and if something doesn't seem strongly to be so, then I suspend my judgment. But it doesn't seem to be rock solid. And one of the things we realize as we read on in the meditations is that God plays a very strong role in providing a kind of strength, or I don't know, a further foundation for that criterion of truth, the vividly and clearly criterion. So how so? Well, establishing that God exists, and whether He does that to your satisfaction, I don't know. Those are personal questions, really. I mean, Descartes says that he has an idea of God as an omnipotent and perfect creature, and claims that idea could not have come from himself. That is, he could have not merely created that idea himself, because he recognizes that he is not perfect. That is, if he has the idea of a perfect being, it must come from some place other than himself. It could not come from himself, because he recognizes his own imperfection, his tendency to make errors and things like that. So that God must be the source of that idea. And the idea is that's an innate idea that God has somehow implanted in the human mind, but that the human mind could not itself have created that idea. Whether he actually proves the existence of God, I don't know. I mean, proofs of the existence of God are quite controversial. But it is certainly clear that once he has established that he clearly and vividly knows that God exists and that God is a perfect being, it follows pretty quickly that God could not be a deceiver. He could not be that evil deceiver that Descartes imagined in earlier meditations. And so a recognition or belief that he himself is created by a good and perfect God, and that he also has these very strong dispositions to believe that certain things are true. For instance, that material bodies exist, that he himself is partly body, that he is fundamentally a mind, but his mind is connected with his body in this special and intimate way, that he is so strongly disposed to believe the truth of those things, that were it to be in fact the case that they were not true, then he would be utterly and completely deceived. Now remember, he has established that God cannot be such a deceiver, so that he can have a certain amount of assurance that at least those things that nature teaches him, nature really being God, right, are true, couldn't possibly be false, because God could not be conceived of as doing that.